I'd like to talk about what exactly commensurate compensation means. Commensurate meaning that if I, as an employee or a business owner, provide a service, then I expect to be compensated to a degree that is commensurate with the value of that service. Now, the reason I say this is because certain women that come on my channel, traditional women, seem to have a predilection for telling me that they are good women to their husbands, not resembling the feminists in their constant demands for female privilege. And so I would like to appraise these services that these benevolent women offer to their husbands in hopes of determining just how important the alleviations you offer are to your men in terms of burden relief. So a lot of it boils down to a simple exchange of sex for resources. Okay, is that commensurate? Well, each man can decide that on his own, but that still leaves us with the question to be answered in the general sense. Is your sexual recompense such that it alleviates all the pressures and stresses exerted on your husband? Now, in physics we study force, and the laws of physics state that when no net force is exerted on an object, then the object is in a state of rest, meaning that if one force is exerting more force than the other, then it's not at rest. So if that's said, is your sex counteracting the force exerted on your husband such that the forces exerted onto him by his 70-hour work week are negated? If they aren't, then you and the sex that you dole out are an inadequate recompense for his efforts. We want solely for the interests of men to find out whether or not the traditional wife provides enough bang for her buck, so to speak, in the hopes of furthering the interests of the men listening to this. And if we arrive at the conclusion that your sex is not commensurate, then we will, regardless of what the traditional homemakers have to say about it, pressure more and more men to do away with their desire to provide for a woman. So we ask then, who gets the better deal? The one giving out the sex, or the one working to support the one giving it out in hopes of continued access to it? If sex was adequate compensation, then why do men die earlier? Now, these good women would have us think that they're doing their part equally, yet it's funny because every time I see a husband and wife out in public, one seems to be aging less with this relaxed, smug look on their face, almost as if they know that they're getting away with the better part of the deal. Now, we've all seen these walking vestiges of masculinity with their wife and kids in tow in some Walgreens pharmacy on the weekend looking dead behind the eyes, resigned to his fate. And to you, generic American husband, I feel nothing but pity. You see, it's pitiful to see you drag your dried-out exoskeleton wherever the missus leads you, wondering why the weekends pass by so fast, and why the work weeks last so long, and why you never get to see your kids, and why you're too tired to see them anyway, and never once do you ask yourself why the suburbanite prostitute passing for your wife doesn't get off her lazy ass and start helping you out. Well, because of the sex. Only you get it less and less now, don't you? Only even if you were still getting it at the same rate, you're still slated to die earlier because you, and this is the part where you should listen and listen good, you are not receiving commensurate exchange. You see, we men have been told that this is a division of labor, and indeed it is. That's exactly what it is. A categorically unfair division of labor. The loving traditional wife wouldn't be so loving if she was the one pulling the 70-hour work week. And what then would your traditional wife say when you attempt to pay her in sex? That form of payment is good enough for her to pay you with, but not good enough for her to work for and receive as payment. So what's the point? Once again, to encourage less and less men to participate in Western traditional marriage and to show that traditional marriage came out of a reality that simply does not exist anymore. And most importantly, women that claim to want traditional relationships consisting of turning dials on washing machines and dishwashers and doling out sex while you, the man, goes out to bust your ass to support her, are deceptive and selfish parasites that are perfectly fine with letting you slowly degrade your own male vitality and health to make things easier for her. Men have been conditioned to think that they're worthless, which is why we obsess with proving our worth to women, and we have to earn our way out of worthlessness, which is why most men don't give a damn that the vast majority of homeless are the same gender as them. Men are worthless, you see, and you with your job and your mortgage and your responsibilities, you, my friend, are just a little less worthless than that male bum on the street, aren't you? You see, that's the mentality that gets us into the trouble we're in today. Women are paying us with the counterfeit currency of sex, and to be honest, most men aren't even paying for just sex. They're paying for some skewed form of motherly companionship. Many men secretly fantasize about some kind of constant motherly female affection is my best guess from what I've observed. It's far from just sex. We have a weakness within ourselves that desires female affection in a way that females do not desire from us. We as men have a bad habit of imagining the ideal woman as being kind and inviting and warm and someone that we can show our weakness to, but the reality is, men, that women simply hate weak men. It's the cold hard reality that men need to face and address. You will find no solace in the bosom of a woman, I assure you. No, you see, it's time for men to stand up and look around them and see that it is a very cold place and you're the only one that can pull yourself out of that frigid abyss. You. There is no mommy coming to save you, men. There is no mommy to make you feel safe. And as a matter of fact, women despise men that show any weakness because they want to be taken care of. That's right, they despise you for wanting the same things that they demand from men. Security, protection, reassurance, etc. These things a man must earn by overcoming insecurity and danger in order to earn self-assurance, which women apparently respond to. So that still just boils down to one fundamental truth in regards to this society. Men, you are alone in the eyes of this society, and the only ones that will be rewarded are the ones that perform and perform well according to society's standards. If you think for a second that in this society your inherent personhood as a man matters, you are sorely mistaken. This society just does not care, and there exists a very real power in knowing exactly where one stands as a man, no matter how desolate and isolated the situation is. You see, if we know we're alone, then it's possible, maybe not probable, but possible, that men just might for once in history find it mutually beneficial to help each other out for a change, to stop crawling over each other to get to the top, and to start asking ourselves, why is it that we always seem to have to start at the bottom, while the other half of the human race gets a leg up in every conceivable way from the state and from our culture in general? Why are we made to compete with each other, to tear each other apart and hate each other in order to gain acceptance from the very people that hate men for being at the top and hate them even more for being on the bottom of the societal ladder? You see, our main weakness as men lies within our inability to recognize when and how men are hated. We want so desperately to believe the illusion, we want so desperately to be liked and wanted and needed that we've lost all sort of instinct for self-preservation to the point where we will literally jump in front of knives and bullets for women we don't even know. The system, you see, is not designed for male contentedness. It doesn't want male happiness. It wants you to constantly feel incomplete. It thrives off your insecurity. It needs you to question yourself. It needs you to be in constant fear of what exactly? Of being alone, of being a virgin, of getting married, of continuing to have sex after you're no longer a virgin, of being muscular, of not going bald, of this, of that, of everything. Because remember, you are not allowed a shred of weakness or vulnerability. This society stifles the spirit of men and is pesticide on the male soul. And I want out. I want out. Go ahead, repeat it for yourself and see how good it makes you feel to say it. I want out. You see, there's a real value in saying this because society still has no clue. I mean, they're pumping out these man up articles one right after another, aren't they? Have we raised a generation of men that don't know how to be men? Where have all the good men gone? How come women are outperforming men in this and that? They simply will not come to admit that this is a result of a sustained effort to disenfranchise men, one in which the end result can only be men turning their backs on a society that will, to the bitter end, hate on men for doing so. Because you see, you as a man exist to serve. There won't be an equal treatment of male victims of domestic violence, for example, no matter how much the inequality of it is pointed out, simply because you as a man have no right in this society to demand equal treatment. Such a thing would spell disaster for this society. And so to demand equality from this society is to demand that this society voluntarily carry out a process of self-implosion. Now, I certainly won't say that men shouldn't fight for these things. They most certainly should. I'm simply making the claim that our society, Western society as we know it, cannot exist in the event that men begin to enjoy equal protections under the law fully. And so my conclusion is simple. Men must understand the following statements. First, traditionalism is no longer functional in a society where technology has progressed to a point where it has cut the networking time of a homemaker in half, and the women that are sticking to traditionalism are merely enjoying a free ride at the expense of you, the provider workhorse, and they know it, and it's about time you take note of it also. Second, Women do not like men for their inherent personhood. They like what you can give them. Once you aren't giving it to them, whether it be excitement or sex that they enjoy or money, then you are simply a non-entity to them. Meaning that women have no conceptualization of masculinity outside of the scope of how they can benefit from it. And so they see it as nothing more than a transactional mechanism, a slot machine in which they have, thanks to biology, a very good idea of when and how to pull the levers in order to hit the jackpot. See the excerpt on Briffault's law in the description box in regards to this. Also, even when you are providing to women what they want, they are always testing you to see if you're still man enough to provide it, and in the period of time that you still are man enough to do so, they on some level resent you for being able to do so. See also my video, Sharon Osbourne Demonstrates Innate Female Misandry, in the description box. Third, there is a very real power and strength to be extracted from the modern Western male admitting to himself that he can and will experience vulnerability and moments of weakness just like women get to. And this is not, quote, getting in touch with your feminine side, end quote. You see, that very axiom proves my point, that any expression of vulnerability is associated with the female, meaning that if men show any vulnerability, then they are exhibiting female behavior. It's just another way of shaming men to take the bullshit that women never have to endure. Men will not truly understand their strength until they are allowed to explore their weaknesses. And it's time that we wrestle away the monopoly that women have on vulnerability. Yes, men have historically been pillars of strength, but even Atlas shrugged, and so will you, many times, I assure you. So along with my concept of male sovereignty, I want to introduce the concept of male vulnerability in hopes that men begin to define it as a concept that is independent of all things feminine and is uniquely male. Finally, to make it clear, as I have numerous times in previous videos, these videos are being posted as a resource for men, more specifically MRA/men going their own way minded men. I do not care about female input, although I allow them to watch. If women have something to say in the comments section, please make sure that you keep it relevant to MRA/men going their own way topics. The time for debating women has passed a long time ago. And so if you want to debate the merits of the men's movement, go do it over at Feministing. This is not the place. That's all I gotta say for now, but more to come.